I pretended to lose everything to a cryptocurrency scam. My real estate developer's son said he was closing a deal in the Bahamas. My marketing executive daughter said her condo association didn't allow long-term guests. But my youngest, a firefighter who shares a 2-bedroom rental with 3 other guys, cleared out his only closet and gave me his bed. He was ready to sell his truck to help me get back on my feet. And when my attorney walked through that cramped apartment door with the truth about my $78 million, the look on their faces is something I'll never forget. I'm grateful you're here with me. Before we go further, take a moment to tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your voice matters, and I read more than you might think. Just a note before we begin. Some elements of this story have been adjusted for privacy and storytelling purposes. Any resemblance to specific people or places is coincidental, but the message itself is completely real. The view from my penthouse in downtown Denver was spectacular that October evening. 43 floors up, the Rocky Mountains painted purple and gold against the sunset. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, a glass of bourbon in my hand that I'd barely touched, looking out at a city I'd helped build. Literally, Morrison Building Corp had constructed half the skyline I was staring at. Hotels, office towers, luxury condos, 62 major projects over 38 years. My name is Thomas Morrison. Most people call me Tom. I started with a crew of 4 guys and a single cement mixer in 1987. By 2024, I employed 1,800 people across Colorado, Wyoming, and New Mexico. My company was worth $78 million. I had everything a man could want. Everything except the person who mattered most. My wife, Linda, passed 6 years ago. Cancer. She fought for 18 months, and I was there for every appointment, every treatment, every difficult night. Linda used to say that success was worthless if you had no one to share the sunset with. Standing alone in a penthouse that cost $4 million, surrounded by awards and achievements and empty rooms, I finally understood what she meant. The phone rang at 7:14 p.m. My oldest son, Brandon, the one I'd given $450,000 to start his real estate development company in Miami. He'd become successful, flipping luxury properties, living the high life in South Beach. "Dad, I'm glad you picked up." His voice had that rushed quality, like he was squeezing me in between more important calls. "I need to talk to you about an opportunity." My chest tightened, but I tried to stay hopeful. Maybe he wanted to visit. Maybe he was calling just to check in. "There's a waterfront development in the Bahamas. High-end resort condos. I need to move fast on this, but I'm $400,000 short for my share of the partnership. Can you help me out?" $400,000. Not "How are you doing, Dad?" Not "I miss you." Just a number and a deadline. "Brandon, that's significant. Tell me more about it. Can we discuss this in person?" There was a pause. I could hear voices in the background. Music. The sound of a party. "I'm actually heading to Nassau next week to finalize things. This really can't wait. I need to know by Wednesday. Can you just wire the money to my account?" "What about Thanksgiving?" I asked. "Will you be back for that?" "Thanksgiving? Dad, that's weeks away. I'll be in the Bahamas. Maybe Christmas, we'll see. But I really need an answer on this investment." I told him I'd think about it. We hung up. I stood there, staring at my phone, feeling something shift inside my chest. The second call came 53 minutes later. My daughter, Melissa. I'd spent $380,000 on her MBA at Northwestern. She'd become a marketing executive at a major firm in Chicago, pulling in a 6-figure salary, living in a high-rise in River North. "Hi, Daddy." Her voice was bright, cheerful, the tone she used when she wanted something. "I have something exciting to discuss with you." I waited, already knowing what was coming. Richard and I found the perfect investment property. A penthouse in Lincoln Park. It's going to appreciate like crazy, but we need to move on it now. I need $350,000 for the down payment. $350,000. Another child. Another number. "Melissa, that's a lot of money. When's the last time we actually spent time together?" "I know, Daddy. I've been so busy with the campaign launch. But after this quarter wraps up, Maybe I can fly out for a weekend. This property, though, we need to close by the end of the month. Can you help? I told her I'd think about it. Another goodbye that felt hollow. I poured another bourbon, this time actually drinking it. 2 children, 2 requests, 2 reminders that I'd become an ATM machine instead of a father. The third call came at 9:02 p.m. My youngest son, Kevin, the one who'd surprised everyone by becoming a firefighter instead of joining the family business. I'd paid for his fire science degree, a modest $38,000 at a state school in Colorado. He worked for the Durango Fire Department, lived in a rental house with 3 other firefighters, drove a 10-year-old pickup truck. Hey, Dad. His voice was warm, real. Did I catch you at a bad time? Kevin, it's good to hear from you. Never a bad time for you. I just wanted to check in. You sounded kind of off when we talked last week. Everything okay? You eating right? Getting enough sleep? He wasn't asking for money. He was asking about me. My eyes stung. I'm fine, son. How are you doing? How's work? We talked for 45 minutes. About his latest rescue call, about the stray dog the fire station had adopted, about his buddy Jake who'd just gotten engaged, about nothing important and everything that mattered. When we hung up, I knew what I had to do. I called my attorney, Richard Phillips. We'd been friends for 37 years, since before I had anything worth protecting with legal documents. Richard, I need your help with something unusual. He came to my penthouse at 11 that night. I explained my plan. He tried to talk me out of it for 2 hours. Tom, you're talking about faking financial ruin. Do you understand what you're asking? I understand perfectly. I need to know which of my children loves me and which ones just love my money. We planned meticulously. A medical team on standby in case anything went wrong. Security personnel positioned at strategic locations. A believable story about a cryptocurrency scam. About a fraudulent investment advisor who'd convinced me to put everything into digital assets that turned out to be worthless. About losing the company, losing the penthouse, losing everything in a matter of weeks. The transformation took 3 weeks. First, I had to look the part. I stopped going to my barber. Let my hair grow unkempt, streaked with gray, I usually colored. I stopped shaving regularly. I bought clothes from a Goodwill in Aurora, worn jeans, frayed flannel shirts, a jacket with a broken zipper. Items that told a story of a man who'd fallen from grace. Then came the story itself. Richard helped me craft it. A cryptocurrency investment that promised 40% returns. An advisor named Marcus Chen who seemed legitimate, with fake credentials and testimonials. A decision made in grief and loneliness, wanting to grow my wealth to leave more for my children. The realization too late that it was all a scam. The company seized by creditors. The penthouse sold at auction. Bank accounts drained. Everything gone. The hardest part was looking at myself in the mirror before I started. The man staring back looked 15 years older than his 67 years. His eyes held a desperate, broken quality. But underneath the act, there was something else. A terrible fear that this test might reveal a truth I wasn't ready to face. I made my first call on a Tuesday morning. Brandon's assistant answered. Morrison Development Group. How may I direct your call? I need to speak with Brandon Morrison. It's his father. It's urgent. When Brandon finally picked up, his voice was impatient. Dad, I'm literally walking into a meeting. What's wrong? I told him everything. The scam, the losses, the total financial collapse. My voice shook, and the shaking wasn't entirely an act. Brandon, I've lost everything. The company's gone. The penthouse is being auctioned. I have less than $3,000 to my name. I need help. Just somewhere to stay for a few weeks until I can figure things out. There was a long silence. I could hear him breathing, could hear him thinking, Dad, that's insane. How did you let this happen? Didn't you have Richard review anything? I made mistakes, Brandon. I'm asking for help. I'm asking my son for a place to stay. Another pause. This one even longer. Dad, my place is full. I've got business partners staying here for the Bahamas deal. It's wall-to-wall people for the next 3 weeks. Can you maybe check into a hotel? I can send you some money for that. I'm asking for your couch, Brandon. I'm your father. He exhaled sharply. Look, let me send you $200 for a motel. I'll figure something out after the Bahamas trip closes. But I really can't have you here right now. It would be awkward with my investors around. You understand, right? He Venmo'd me $200 and hung up. I sat in my lawyer's office, holding my phone, understanding perfectly. My son had calculated my worth at $200 and a promise to think about it later. The call to Melissa went similarly. She was at a client lunch. Daddy, this is terrible timing. I'm with the CEO of our biggest account. I explained the situation. The scam, the losses, the desperate need for help. Oh my God, Daddy. This is awful. But I can't really deal with this right now. Richard and I are closing on that penthouse next week. Our place is being renovated. We literally don't have space. Melissa, I'm your father. I need somewhere to sleep. Have you tried looking at extended stay hotels? They're actually pretty nice. I can send you some money for a deposit. She sent me $500 via Zelle and promised to call me back later. She never did. The bus ride to Durango took 9 hours. I sat in the back, invisible among other passengers who couldn't afford better options. An elderly Hispanic woman shared her homemade tamales with me without being asked. A young kid heading to college gave me his phone charger when mine died. These strangers showed me more kindness in 9 hours than my 2 oldest children had shown me in a week. Kevin's place was a small house on the outskirts of town. Paint peeling, grass overgrown, the kind of place 4 guys in their 20s rent because it's cheap and they're never home anyway. I knocked on the door at 6:47 p.m. Kevin opened it in his DFPD t-shirt, looking exhausted from a shift. When he saw me, his face cycled through confusion, shock, and then fierce protective anger. Dad? What happened? Are you okay? Did someone hurt you? He didn't ask why I was there unannounced. He didn't glance nervously back into the house. He didn't calculate the inconvenience. He pulled me into a hug so tight I could barely breathe. Come inside. Right now. You're freezing. The house was small. A living room with mismatched furniture, a tiny kitchen, 2 bedrooms that probably had bunk beds. Kevin's roommates were there. Jake, Marcus, and Tyler. 3 young guys who stopped playing video games the moment they saw me. Guys, this is my dad. He's staying with us. We'll figure out the sleeping arrangements. Jake immediately stood up. Mr. Morrison, you can have my room. I'll crash on the couch. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking, Kevin said firmly. Your family. This is what we do. I told them the story. The same story I'd told Brandon and Melissa. The scam. The losses. The complete financial devastation. Kevin listened with tears in his eyes. When I finished, he was already grabbing blankets from a closet. You're taking my bed. I'm sleeping on the floor in here with the guys. Kevin, please, I can take the couch. Dad. His voice was firm. You're taking my bed. End of discussion. That night, I lay in my son's bed. It was a twin mattress, probably 10 years old, with springs that poked through in places. The pillow smelled like his shampoo. Through the thin walls, I could hear everything. Kevin was in the kitchen with his roommates. They thought I was asleep. Guys, I need to talk to you about rent. My dad's going to need to stay here for a while, maybe a few months. I know it's crowded, but he has nowhere else to go. Jake spoke up first. Kevin, man, your dad can stay as long as he needs. We'll make it work. The problem is money, Kevin continued. He's got nothing. I need to help him get back on his feet. I've been thinking about my truck. Your truck? Marcus sounded alarmed. Kev, you need that for work. I can bike to the station. It's only 4 miles. The truck's worth maybe $12,000. That would give Dad enough to live on for 6 months while he figures things out. Tyler chimed in. What about selling your tools? Your climbing gear? I'll sell whatever I need to sell. He's my father. He spent his whole life building something so we could have better. Now he's got nothing. And Brandon sent him $200. Melissa sent him $500. My older siblings looked at our father, desperate and broken, and they sent him money for a motel. There was a long silence. What does it say about them? Kevin's voice cracked. They have everything. Everything. Brandon's closing deals in the Bahamas. Melissa's buying penthouses. And they couldn't find space for their own father. They couldn't put him up for one night. Maybe they don't know how bad it is. Jake offered weakly. He told them. I heard Dad on the phone. He told them he lost everything, and Brandon said it would be awkward with his investors around. I lay in the darkness, tears streaming down my face. My youngest son, the one I'd spent the least on, the one I'd secretly worried about for choosing a modest path, was planning to sell his truck, his tools, everything he owned. For a father he believed had nothing left. I'd spent over $800,000 on Brandon and Melissa combined. Education, business investments, down payments, bailouts. They'd given me pocket change and referrals to extended stay hotels. I'd spent $38,000 on Kevin. He was giving me everything he had. The next morning, before Kevin woke up, I made my decision. I called Richard from the bathroom. It's time. Send them all. At 10 a.m. sharp, 3 black SUVs pulled up in front of the little house. Neighbors appeared in windows, curious about the unusual sight in their working-class neighborhood. Richard stepped out first, followed by my accountant, Sarah Chen, and 2 security personnel. Richard carried a leather briefcase that contained documents that would change everything. Kevin answered the door in his gym shorts, confused. His roommates gathered behind him. Can I help you? We're here to see Thomas Morrison. Is he available? Kevin's face went pale. He looked back at me, standing in the hallway. Dad, what's going on? I need you to call your brother and sister. Tell them to get on a video call. Right now. 20 minutes later, Kevin's laptop was set up on the kitchen table. Brandon appeared on screen from what looked like a yacht. Melissa was in her office, annoyed at being interrupted. Dad! What's this about? I have a presentation in an hour. I stood in front of the camera. Richard stood beside me, briefcase open. Kevin sat at the table, his roommates hovering in the background, confused. Everything I told you was a lie. Kevin's face went white. What? I never lost my money. There was no cryptocurrency scam. No Marcus Chen. Morrison Building Corp is worth $78 million. And I own every share. I created this entire situation as a test. Brandon leaned forward on the screen. A test? You tested us? I went to you first, Brandon. I stood outside your Miami condo building and called you. Told you I'd lost everything and needed help. You sent me $200 and told me you couldn't have me there because it would be awkward with your investors. Brandon's face flushed. Dad, I was in the middle of a major deal. Then I called you, Melissa. I told you I was desperate, that I had nowhere to go. You sent me $500 and suggested extended stay hotels because your place was being renovated. Melissa's eyes were wide. Daddy, we were legitimately. But you. I turned to Kevin, who was staring at me in shock. You didn't ask questions. You didn't calculate inconvenience. You saw your father in crisis and you opened your door. You gave me your bed. You were going to sell your truck to help me survive. Kevin's hands were shaking. Dad, I don't understand. Why would you do this? Because I needed to know. I needed to know if I'd raised children who understood what family means. I needed to know if anyone would love me when I had nothing to give. Richard stepped forward. The documents in this briefcase represent a complete restructuring of Mr. Morrison's estate. The majority of his assets, $58 million, will be placed in a trust for Kevin. This includes full ownership of Morrison Building Corp. Kevin gasped. What? No, I don't want. Brandon and Melissa will each receive $10 million. However, Richard continued, these inheritances come with specific conditions. 1,000 hours of community service, working with homeless populations and families in financial crisis. 2 years of mandatory family counseling, and a written letter of apology, not to your father but to Kevin, for how you treated Tom when you thought he had nothing. Brandon's face on the screen was purple. This is insane. You're punishing us for being busy? I'm showing you consequences for forgetting what matters. You both have everything. 6-figure jobs, luxury homes, successful careers. And when your father called you desperate and broken, You sent money and closed the door. Melissa was crying. Daddy, we didn't know it was this serious. You knew enough. You knew I told you I lost everything. You knew I was asking for help. And you chose your business deals and your renovations over your own father. I turned back to Kevin, who had his head in his hands. Son, look at me. Kevin looked up, tears streaming down his face. I heard you last night. I heard you planning to sell your truck. I heard everything you said about your brother and sister. And I heard you ask the most important question of all. What does it say about them? I knelt down in front of him, taking his hands. It says that wealth corrupted them. It says they forgot where they came from. But you never forgot. You chose a life of service. You risked your life saving other people. And when your father needed saving, you didn't hesitate for a single second. Kevin was sobbing now. I don't want their money, Dad. I just wanted you to be okay. I know. That's exactly why you're getting it. Richard cleared his throat. There's one more thing. He pulled out a set of keys. Mr. Morrison has purchased a house here in Durango. 4 bedrooms, 2 acres, room for a family. It's yours, Kevin. Free and clear. Kevin stared at the keys like they might vanish. You've earned it. Not through status or deals or climbing corporate ladders. You earned it by being exactly who you are. By choosing love over convenience. By being the son who gives everything to help someone he thinks has nothing. Jake stepped forward and put his hand on Kevin's shoulder. Mr. Morrison, we don't know what to say. Say you'll help me teach my other children what Kevin already knows. Say you'll help them learn that family isn't about what you can extract, but what you're willing to give. On the laptop screen, Brandon had his head in his hands. Melissa was openly weeping. I'm sorry, she whispered. Daddy, I'm so sorry. You'll have your chance to show me. 2 years of therapy, 1,000 hours of service. You'll learn what your brother already knows. 3 years later, I'm sitting at Kevin's table for Thanksgiving dinner. The house I bought him has become the center of our family. The walls are covered with photos. The kitchen smells of turkey and fresh bread. The sound of children playing fills the air. Kevin's daughter, Emma, 3 years old now, runs through the house chasing Brandon's son, little Tommy. Brandon has changed. The therapy worked. The community service transformed him. He volunteers at a homeless shelter in Miami every Saturday. He doesn't check his phone during family dinners anymore. He actually listens. Melissa is here too, helping Kevin's wife in the kitchen. She took a pay cut to work for a nonprofit marketing firm that helps low-income families. She told me once, after 2 years of therapy, that she didn't recognize the person she'd become. The person who suggested her father try an extended stay hotel. Jake, Marcus, and Tyler are here too. Kevin's old roommates have become part of our family. Tyler is engaged to Melissa's sister-in-law. Marcus is Kevin's business partner in a fire safety consulting firm. Jake is Emma's godfather. Before we eat, Brandon stands. He does this every Thanksgiving now. I want to say something. His voice is thick with emotion. 3 years ago, my father called me desperate and broken, and I sent him $200 because I was too busy closing a deal. I chose a business opportunity over my own father. The room is quiet, except for Emma playing with a napkin. I've spent 3 years trying to understand how I became that person. Brandon continues. How I became someone who could value money over family. And I know now that it happened gradually, one compromise at a time, one closed door at a time, until I'd forgotten what Dad tried to teach us all along. That success means nothing if you lose your humanity. Melissa nods, tears in her eyes. But Kevin never forgot. Brandon turns to his youngest brother. When Dad showed up at your door with nothing, you gave him everything. Not because you had more to give than Melissa and me, but because you remembered what family means. He raises his glass. To Kevin, to Dad, to second chances. We all drink. Emma demands more juice. The moment dissolves into laughter and chaos, and the beautiful mess of a real family being a family. Later, after the dishes are done and the children are asleep, I sit on Kevin's porch watching the stars over the San Juan Mountains. Kevin joins me with 2 beers. Do you ever regret it? He asks. The test? I think about the question carefully. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that I raised two children who needed to be tested to remember who they were. But I don't regret learning the truth, and I don't regret what came after. Kevin leans back in his chair. Brandon's really different now. So is Melissa. They learned. It took pain to teach them, but they learned. Some people never do. We sit in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Dad, Kevin says eventually, I never cared about the money. You know that, right? I would have sold my truck. I would have sold everything I owned. I would have slept on the floor for years if you needed it. I know. That's why you have it. Because you would have done anything. Because you understood that wealth isn't what you accumulate. It's what you're willing to sacrifice for the people you love. Inside the house, I can hear Brandon and Melissa laughing about something. Jake is playing his guitar softly. Emma murmurs in her sleep. This is what $78 million could never buy. This is family. This is love. This is what matters when everything else falls away. My name is Thomas Morrison. I built a company worth $78 million. I also nearly lost 3 children because I forgot to teach them what that money was for. But standing in my firefighter son's doorway, pretending to have nothing, I finally learned the lesson I should have understood all along. Real wealth isn't measured in properties or portfolios or the balance of your accounts. It's measured in the people who would sell their truck when they think you have nothing. It's measured in the arms that hold you when you're broken. It's measured in the children who, when they learn the truth, choose to become better rather than bitter. If this story moved you, I ask 3 things. Comment below with your own story of family, sacrifice, or second chances. Share this message with someone who needs to remember what truly matters. Subscribe for more stories about fathers who refuse to give up on their children. Because sometimes the most important thing a father can do is strip away everything that glitters to reveal what's truly gold. Before I close, an important note. This story contains elements adjusted for privacy and storytelling purposes. If it resonates with you, I hope you'll carry its message forward. But don't wait until you've lost everything to discover who would stay. Choose love over convenience. Choose presence over presence. And may you never have to test your family to know they'd be there.